Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Fernando Riati, board member with the Center for Victims of Torture. I am so pleased that all of you have joined us today for this virtual celebration of the United Nations International Day in support of victims of torture and our Eclipse Award presentation. Today is a special day for CVT and for me as a torture survivor to pause and reflect on our experiences. Those who have endured torture have experienced some of the most horrible things people can do to one another. We mourn for the victims of torture, the Rohingya, the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Eritreans, the South Sudanese. We also mourn for Black Americans, including George Floyd in Minnesota and Ahmaud Arbery and Rayshard Brooks here in my home state of Georgia. We mourn that there are too many people to name. We honor those who died and also those who survived, acknowledging the horrible wrongs they endured. We celebrate that those who survived can find courage and strength, light and hope within themselves, denying their past trauma from darkening their futures. Today, we lift up all survivors. We hear their stories, we commit to supporting them, we commit to creating a world free of torture. Today, we honor an individual who has himself taken on an extraordinary journey and found great success, Dr. Abeilah Kelly, a cardiologist and a refugee. A member of my community here in Atlanta, is recipient of CVT's annual Eclipse Award. Overcoming many obstacles, Dr. Kelly is a person who goes to great lengths to take care of refugees and torture survivors, creating the conditions that will allow people to succeed and helping people rebuild their lives. Before we present our award, we will hear from Kurt Goering, Executive Director, and Darlene Lynch, Head of External Relations, CVT Georgia. But next, we want to hear from CVT staff all around the world.
Today, we are celebrating the healing effect of survivors' laughter that engages the body and releases the mind. The spectacular laughter with the power of connecting them to us and to others. The dose of joy we feel is really a spiritual cure. I'm celebrating the strength of the personal spirit every time they show us when they smile. I see them healing, grieving, and letting things go. I see them becoming clear-minded and focused to restore their lives and become emotionally healthy.
Hello, I'm Dr. Andrea Northwood, CVT's Director of Client Services. For me, June 26th is all about moving beyond surviving to thriving. We really believe that surviving is only the beginning and that survivors have the right to as full a rehabilitation as possible so that they can go on to thrive. And they do. We see this in so many marvelous, wonderful, unique ways. And this is a day that is all about celebrating that.
Hi, my name is Joseph Wesonga. I work for CVT as a physiotherapist trainer at Kakuma Refugee Camp. And I would like to say something about 26th June in support of the victims of torture. We have been receiving people coming from different backgrounds in very difficult circumstances as refugees coming to refugee camp in Kakuma. And as a physiotherapist, we have received them and tried to assist them to give them actually second lease of life. And why I say second lease of life, that they come in when they are very gloomy, they are not able to do much, they are feeling depressed, they feel down. Some of them have got incontinence, they have got pain. Some of them feel that they will never be back to normal. But through talking to them, creating good rapport and giving them exercises, we get that they have a second lease of life. And we are very glad that they become again useful members of the society. Exercise has got a lot of ways of rejuvenating an individual, producing hormones that can support individuals go back to normalcy. And through physiotherapy, we have realized that people have gone back to being useful members of the society and contributing to their families and their communities very well. And we're very grateful that CVT has got such a well-designed program that is comprising of psychosocial services and physiotherapy services that is bringing change to people. Thank you very much.
Working as a social worker, it means believing that you can and do make a difference every single day. From the client perspective, it looks like a candle, ship, and stairs. Thank you.
I learned from clients a lot of things. I learned how people with determination are those who get up and keep going and who believes in despite all obstacles. Our daily life demand a small dose of determination at every twist, and for every action we make, there is always that seems easier, that is away from our goal. Determination is not always beating a giant with a stick. It is the day-to-day to do the tough things first.
Hello, this year we are celebrating June 26th. While we are responding to the coronavirus, it's very important for us this year to commemorate June 26th, to show our support and solidarities with survivors in this difficult time, which survivors are double suffering from the current situation. To say for them, we are always with them. They are always in our thoughts and in our hearts.
As a PSC with CVT, today I want to take this opportunity to celebrate the courage and resilience depicted by most of the survivors of torture and war trauma. It's amazing to see how these people bounce back to normal life despite the traumatic past experiences that they've gone through. Indeed, this confirms the say that goes that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
June 2020 is it's the 26th of June at CVT, and it still feels like my first 26th of June. Each year I have the same feeling. Each year I feel like it's still my first 26th of June celebration. Each year when we become closer to 26th of June, I feel something inside me growing, which is the inspiration, the resilience, the strength that all the torture survivors we worked with build on us.
Wow, I am always so moved and so inspired by our staff around the world. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their dedication. Every day they face the horrors of trauma, and yet they find ways to bring joy to their work. If they don't bring joy and optimism and hope, how could their clients find and bring those things to their struggles to recover too? Hello, I'm Kurt Gehring, Executive Director of the Center for Victims of Torture. While it may be cliche to say it, it is no less true. These are extraordinary times. We are experiencing one crisis inflicted upon us, the COVID-19 global pandemic, and another inflicted by us, centuries of racial injustice, which is manifest in human rights violations, including police brutality. Our work can be difficult and heavy, even more so now during these last few months and weeks. But CVT staff, as we've just seen, remind me, and I hope they remind you, that making the time for joy sustains the work of healing and human rights, especially when it is so challenging. That's why each year thousands of survivors and community members gather at our healing centers around the world to celebrate this important day. While our celebrations look different this year, this UN Day is no less meaningful. In lieu of being together, I want to give you a sense of what our celebrations have looked like. In Ethiopia, we celebrated the healing journey of survivors like Jonas. After escaping forced military service and finding healing in our group therapy program, he said, "CVT has given me life. CVT shows me I have dignity, that I can still live." During UN Day, staff and survivors gathered together to share music and poetry. In Jordan, CVT staff celebrated the healing journey of survivors like Hiba, who escaped Syria during the war. Hiba told us she was grateful that she was able to talk about the things she thought she could never say. Last year for UN Day, we held a symposium about the care refugee child survivors of torture and war atrocities so desperately need. In the United States, we celebrated the healing journey of survivors like Patricia, who escaped xenophobia in South Africa, torturers in El Salvador, and US detention centers to find care at CVT. She says she feels like a gladiator now. She can do anything. For UN Day, we've had multiple gatherings of CVT board, staff, and clients. Survivors brought their families, shared a meal, and everyone participated in the important ritual of tying a bracelet for one another, reminding us of the hope and healing made possible in our centers around the world. This is the same hope and healing that you make possible with our entire community of supporters because of your generosity and commitment to rehabilitation for torture survivors. Thank you. Another way we mark this day is by presenting the Eclipse Award each year to an individual or an organization that has played a crucial role in ending torture or in extending care and rehabilitation to torture survivors. Our recipient this year is a brilliant example of that same strength and resiliency, of hope for the future. Today, I am truly honored to recognize Dr. Hival Kelly with the Eclipse Award. Dr. Kelly is a Katz Foundation Fellow in Preventive Cardiology at Emory University School of Medicine and a Syrian Kurdish refugee. Having personally investigated human rights violations against Kurds in Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran, and having heard and seen firsthand how so many Kurds have suffered so severely, it is especially meaningful to me for CVT to recognize Dr. Kelly's efforts. Darlene Lynch, Head of External Relations, CVT Georgia, will share more about Dr. Kelly and present the award. But before she does, I want to tell you a story that I've been reminded of often these last few weeks. One of the first things I learned about Dr. Kelly is the extraordinary story of how he met with a young veteran who had joined the KKK after serving in Afghanistan and Iraq, and he found himself hating Muslims and other minorities. Dr. Kelly and Chris became friends, and Dr. Kelly eventually helped Chris leave the Klan. Racial justice is a human rights issue, and Dr. Kelly's example is a powerful reminder of the connections we must build among each other to break down the walls that separate us. Not surprisingly, Dr. Kelly was one of the organizers for the recent Black Lives Matter protest in Clarkston, Georgia, where CVT's offices are located. Many of the survivors we work with were tortured because of their identity or because they stood up for what's right in their country. Dr. Kelly's family also had to flee Syria because of their identity, because their human rights were denied. And here in the US, Dr. Kelly now works tirelessly to advance human rights for others. Dr. Kelly and his work are a big reason to celebrate. He is a shining light in these times, and we are proud that he chooses to accept the Eclipse Award today.
You are a very successful doctor. You contribute to the well-being of the community in which you live, and your success story is very important to communicate.
I started washing dishes as a high school senior, right across from Emory University, where I'm finishing my cardiology training today. So I tell people it took me about, 20 years to walk one block from washing dishes to become a doctor. Refugee could play a big role in investing in this country. Over 1/3 of the physicians in America are immigrants and refugee background, and we are on the front line helping. So we need the refugee to be part of the fight, because our resilience and what we've been through, we could be actually a supporting arm for a lot of the native countries that accept us. We've been doing a lot of virtual education for our Kurdish community across the online network, and that's been very helpful.
It's very reassuring to see that when we fight for the rights of refugees, we fight for the right cause. Thank you so very much.
It's an honor to be here today to share in the celebration of my good friend, Dr. Haval Kelly. Here in Georgia, we have been inspired by Haval's work and his commitment to service for quite some time, and it's wonderful to see the UN Secretary General share his example with the rest of the world. I have one caveat, though, about that video. In it, Haval says it took him 20 years to go one block, from the restaurant where he washed dishes to support his family, to Emory University, where this week he completes his residency in cardiology. It may have taken 20 years to go that block, but I will tell you, Haval does nothing slowly, and this was no leisurely stroll. Instead, he was knocking down obstacles, building bridges, and forging a path to the American dream, not just for himself, but for others around him. During that 20-year journey, Haval was working weekends in free refugee health clinics right down the road from CVT, Georgia, caring for survivors of torture and war trauma from all parts of the globe. He was taking extra shifts at the VA hospital in Atlanta, where veterans wait weeks and months for medical attention. He was diffusing a hateful political stunt in Clarkston when a candidate drove a deportation bus into the heart of the refugee community. Haval greeted him with baklava and an offer to talk. He was addressing crowds at World Refugee Day and joining CVT in one-on-one meetings with US members of Congress. Not least, Haval was creating mentorship programs to highlight the path for others coming up behind him, including a young man whose family fled war in Kurdistan, and another who was the first in his Mexican village to graduate college, both with dreams of becoming doctors in America, like Haval. At CVT, we often speak about the amazing resilience of our clients, who endure terrible human cruelty and somehow go on to build new lives for themselves and their families. Haval knows that resilience. He sees it in himself and his family, in his patients and his students, in the refugee community and the torture survivors that he serves. Today, we honor Haval for his tireless work and his dedication to the communities that CVT serves, for forging that path to the truest version of the American dream, full of hope and opportunity. Haval once told me that he is a cardiologist who seeks to heal the heart of America. I think he just might, and I hope that he does. It is with great pleasure that I present the CVT Eclipse Award to my friend, Dr. Haval Kelly.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful recognition. And I'm very honored to receive this award, the Eclipse Award by the Center for Victims of Torture. I really appreciate your hard work, and really I feel very humbled to receive this as a refugee. I never imagined I will be standing in front of you to have this recognition. As a refugee, we all have the same story, and my story is the story of many. I'm a Kurd from Syria. We lived in Syria. My father was a lawyer, and due to political issue of the Kurds, he was put in jail, tortured for 6 months. Police came to our house, beat my mom, beat me up, and I was 11-year-old. And here's my family had to flee Syria, go to Turkey, and end up in Germany in refugee camps. We lived for 6 years in different refugee camps in Germany. The challenges and torture didn't stop there, because as a kid, I was facing bullying and beaten up almost daily because I looked different from everyone in my class. But Germany gave us safety. We had no police storming our house. But because of our residency status, we had to apply for somewhere else for refugee asylum. So we end up being accepted by United States of America, and my family was excited. But then 9/11 happened, and then we lost all our hope to have a new beginning. Then we got a call from the embassy. Got 3 days to go to U.S. We had no family, no friends, and we end up in Clarkston, Georgia, the most diverse square mile in America. Here I am, 18 years old. My dad had a heart attack. My mom couldn't find a job as a middle-aged Muslim woman. So as an 18-year-old, I had to wash dishes, clean gardens, work in different construction, go to high school to support my family. Ended up going to Georgia State for undergrad, went to Morehouse School of Medicine, and then my internal medicine residency at Emory University. And then this month, I finished my cardiology fellowship. I'm holding my diploma, my certificate at the Emory University, literally a block away from the restaurant where I used to wash dishes. I know all of you guys thinking like he achieved his American dream, but I believe the American dream is literally the investment of people like you and someone like me, and to give me the opportunity to make this happen. I made it this far because people came to our life. When we came to the U.S., we were broken. We had no support, but we had these members from All Saints Episcopal Church, community member, different organization coming supporting us. And that made us feel welcome. And I think that was a sense of mental health support for us. And we had the resilience, and I feel like the resilience of refugee could be part of the solution now. My wife also is a Kurdish refugee from Iraq, and she's a physician. And now we together actually during the COVID-19 era been actively and aggressively involved in educating the community, working in the community, volunteering and testing drive early on when everyone was very scared about it being on the ground. We are on the front line helping people. And we felt like the duty to do that because America welcomed us during one of the hardest times. And now it's our obligation to be there for our fellow Americans. We feel honored to be doing this. And I feel like, that's why CVT work is important. I think the COVID-19 pandemic era is going to show us there's going to be a new wave of mental health issue coming in. People are staying at home, no job, afraid about doing anything, and unclear about what the next step is for COVID-19 treatment and vaccine. And you guys have been doing the work already for a long time, so you have the infrastructure. I wished I had access to CVT when I came to the U.S., but I see now many refugees like Syrian who coming from this new war and benefiting from your services, doing better. And I think you guys built something that is amazing and is going to be very beneficial to even people now during the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 era. You build the structure, and I think you're going to be on the front line with us addressing the aftermath of COVID-19. Again, our experience as a refugee and our resilience could be part of the solution. And we are part of the solution. We could be there for our fellow Americans. We've been through the challenges and experiences that many are facing right now. So again, I wanted to thank you for this award. This is a special, probably the best gift I could get from my graduation, finishing my 25 years of journey from being a refugee and now being a cardiologist. And I'm looking forward to work in the same community that welcomed me. Thank you so much for the award. And I'm here to support CVT in any way I can, because what you guys are doing is amazing and making a difference in many people's lives.
Wow. I I really can't think of anyone more deserving of receiving the Eclipse Award this year than Dr. Kelly, and we are so pleased that he is joining us live for a bit of conversation. So to everyone joining us on the call, please chat in your questions, and we will do our very best to get to as many as we can. And Dr. Kelly, to start us off, my first question for you is, what is the #1 thing that we can do to support refugees, asylum seekers, and torture survivors during this time?
Oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Sorry for, I'm in a critical care unit and I just stepped out to be part of this, and I'm glad we didn't have any very sick patient this moment. So thank you so much for welcoming me. I think the most important thing, I share my story, is the sense of welcome. We came during probably the hardest time the U.S. faced post 9/11 as Muslim refugees, and the presence of America in our life just to welcome us and be friends really gave us a lot of hope and nurture to feel welcome and build something for our future, which is something anyone could do. It doesn't require much. And I think that's one of the most important things to do for a refugee, give a sense of welcome.
I love that. Thank you. Dr. Kelly, you are a father. What are your hopes and dreams for your son and your family?
Yeah, we have, I hope that my son could sleep more so I could get more sleep to do my job. But he's 1 year old and he's keeping us busy. The reason people ask me, you achieved your goal of becoming a doctor, you're going to have a great job, your wife is a physician, you live in a very privileged community now. Why you like doing this work? And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to tell my child when he grows up and tell me, what did you do when Black Lives Matter was going on? What did you do when refugees were not accepted? What did you do? Were you just doing your job? You should have done more. So I want to be able to tell my child I've done more so he doesn't have to be harassed, and more people like him could be in this country.
Wow, thank you for that. Dr. Kelly, you speak a lot about the importance of people and communities investing in refugees, and I'd love for you to tell us a bit more about this and why it's so important.
Think about a lot of refugees when they come to a host country and they leave their home, they lose that concept of an extended family. If you have already a family, I was lucky to have my mom and dad and brother, but a lot of them don't have even that access. They're either alone, or they even have one sibling. It's very challenging. You lose that concept. So it's very important for us Americans to, around the world, to provide this sense of extended family through friendship. Really, honestly, I never forget that when I was coming here and I needed to apply for the SAT. I didn't know that. And I'll never forget this very senior member of her church came in and drove her car, and I felt bad for her. She came and picked me up, took me for a burger, and showed me bought me a book for the SAT to study, and that really gave me a sense of this is what an aunt would do to me, an uncle would do to me. So that sense of friendship creates a family environment for a lot of refugees, and it's part of healing, right? We know that from data, the more social network you have, the better you address your trauma and torture history, your depression.
So this is a comment and a question from Amy, who says, one of the most amazing things about you, Hival, is that you always bring others with you. Can you talk about how you move and progress forward while still lifting others up and bringing mentors, peers, and mentees with you?
Well, Amy is, she's an amazing person. She's one of the ER physicians, actually. Technically, I know I'm seeing some COVID patients, but she's truly on the front line and a big support of the work that CVT does. I'm so glad she moved from UPenn to Atlanta. We have her in Emory. I think the most important thing, I live in a very underserved, underprivileged community. I know the struggle of people who come, not just American, not just a refugee and immigrant, also American from poor background. We all face the same challenges of having lack of access to healthcare network. And when I became a physician, I realized I don't want to be one of the few in my community to be a doctor. So I try to connect the world of where I used to live in Clarkson and other community with my medical community while I'm moving forward. And I always tell people, the more leaders you create, the more power you have, the more people you can help. So we need to think about it that way. I know medicine is a very competitive field. We do have a sense of ego to be the best. But if you're surrounded by a bunch of leaders in your field, you can help more people. And this is what came through when we had all these drive-through in Clarkston, when we had Black Lives Matter. And the more people you work with, the more event you can host, the more resources you provide to the community.
Thank you. You know, Dr. Kelly, it's very clear that you are an extraordinary example of how to build bridges through compassion and friendship. Can you offer one takeaway for those of us on this call tonight about how we can also build bridges in our own communities?
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I think, you know, I get too much credit for my work. Honestly, I'm just lucky to serve. And I think we all have the power to connect with people. I always tell people it's very hard to hate something you know. So, I mean, you know, hate's always based on like, you know, the unknown factor. And, you know, and that's why me as a refugee, as a Muslim, you know, as an immigrant, you know, whatever, like I needed to be in the front line, especially during this election time, to make sure people who have anti-immigration, anti-refugee sentiment know who we are. You know, they get a lot of their maybe story from the news or the resources that surround it. But when they see us, you know, beyond, especially now, I think the COVID-19 pandemic could be a very beneficial thing to change the image of immigration and refugee in America, because over 1/3 of doctors actually and people on the front line are immigrants. So think about it. We are facing already a very big challenge with the second peak. And people like us are advocating and willing to go on the front line and help fellow Americans. Sorry, help fellow Americans.
Wonderful. Well, we have a comment and a question from Nancy, who Nancy is sharing her congratulations and thanks for reminding us how the United States has traditionally welcomed refugees. And she hopes that examples such as yours can inspire us to do so once again. And her question is, what do you think is the single most important thing we can do to support refugees when they arrive?
I think, you know, I never forget that when I lived in Germany, I give you an example. We lived in refugee camps. The difference in the United States, you actually live in like society with American. But when I was in Germany, it was very hard for us to go to like, for example, to the movie theater or restaurant because we were under government support. So I tell a lot of my American friends, don't forget that refugee also had a social life. Like a simple thing, you could take them to a pizza. Like treat them like you would treat your cousin coming to visit in the state, you know, whereas someone's coming to town. Just think about it. Where would you take them? Take them for a burger. Treat them like someone you treat your family. I think that's the first step where people feel very welcome. Because yes, my refugee might need some help with furniture and job and speaking English, but let's not forget about the basic need of feeling part of a community. And that's what I do. Like when I'm a former, when some refugee comes, some kids, sometimes you know, wife, we take them to the movie theater. We take them to like, you know, some Chick-fil-A. I'm not promoting like the rest, but you know, we just do things that we do for our family. And I think that's very important to keep that in mind.
That is such a great reminder that we can all do something to welcome refugees and asylum seekers into our community. So thank you for that reminder. So everyone, this is all the time we have for this evening. Dr. Kelly, congratulations again on receiving the 2020 Eclipse Award. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Be well and good night.